It would help if I unmuted my microphone, wouldn't it? Well, there we go. That was an easy fix. Okay, everyone. So, introduction time. If you're new here, my name is Michael Noss. I'm a chartered market technician and quantitative trader. Kind of a lot of what we do on this channel is we just kind of go through the markets and figure out what's happening, especially now when it's nice and crazy out and you don't have to just say, oh, we went up today, which is seemingly what we were doing for a while there. So we will, over the next hour or so, go through crypto markets, FX markets, stock markets, individual stocks to try to come up with some individual trading ideas with different equity names for next week. As always, the reason I do this live is because I want to chat, right? So if you guys have questions, let me know. And near the end, when I start doing individual equity names, this would be a very good time to ask questions. If you have, a chart you want me to look at or anything like that, that's when we'll go over that. Is near the end of the stream. Last but not least, links for all of the platforms you're going to see me use, as well as my website, the link in the description below. Basically, what my website is, there's a free trading course there you can go check out. There's no sign in, or you don't need to give me your email or anything. You just go, it's all on YouTube. But the pro product has access to all of my scans, has access to a monthly Q&A with just you guys and myself. Has access to my watch list each and every night, and then everything that I do here, I kind of put into a little blog post and I upload this each evening. So you'll see me take a lot of screenshots and annotate them and do that kind of stuff. It's because I don't want to have to force anybody to watch everything I do in order to get my thoughts on the market. So any charts that I kind of deem interesting enough to share, I will just mark them up and I'll put them there, and then they get uploaded. So, and if we could just leave likes on the video, that's fantastic. YouTube once a month, again, emails me and says, hey, we'll recommend your stuff to more people if you get more likes. And hello to you as well. So with that out of the way, let's just pop right into it and start where I always do at Bitcoin. I had someone comment, reach out and say, I've been watching for ages and I finally kind of figured out that you do the same thing in pretty much the same order every single day. And I'm like, yeah, that's kind of the point, right? You develop your process, whatever that may be, and you just repeat the process over and over until you are so incredibly bored. The other thing that I forgot, but I'll note real quickly, I do have the trading room. We have a trading room with Stats Edge Pro. I've got that up as well if anybody wanted to, send something more privately. You can do it there. So, Bitcoin. You can see this kind of horizontal area that I drew out a while ago, and the note that I have here for the pro members as of Friday, just resting in a downtrend till proven otherwise. I know there's a lot of people that got really excited as things bounced off here. The way I look at it is, we've got the anchored view up from this kind of swing high and the breakdown above. So that's overhead resistance. We've now got 30,000 that's overhead resistance. We're obviously, right, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about Bitcoin being in a downtrend for, when was this? When was the top? November. So, if it keeps going, it'll be kind of the better part of a year. So no reason for me to get too excited, right? We need to construct a uptrend before I'm interested. Right now, it's obviously in a downtrend. So for an uptrend, you may have a kind of mini one if you zoom in, where you have this low here that made a high, and you got slightly little higher low and higher high. But, when drawn out in the overall context of everything that's going on, Bitcoin is just kind of chopping sideways. So I don't really see the need to play around too much. One of the things that I always like, I obviously don't trade like a Warren Buffett would, but one of the sayings, he's got all these great sayings 'cause he's been around for so long. One of the ones that I love is that unlike, something like baseball, there's no three strike rule, right? You can sit there all day with the bat on your shoulder and not swing and not do anything, and there's no kind of harm of that, right? There's nothing against that. So when it comes to crypto, until we get some kind of constructive action here, I'm not, right? It's still just as I said, just resting in a downtrend until proven otherwise. That short, I missed that entirely. I was actually watching the Anchored VWAP from this kind of breakdown point. We got right there, and then we coiled off it. I did not get that short, but that would be something that I'd be interested in taking if I did get the first touch of that. I think would be really, really good. Now, again, I'm not one to pick tops and I'm not one to pick bottoms, right? I'm more of the meet in the middle kind of a trader where, I'm like, give me that meet in the middle, give me the trend in the middle of the trend. I'll be fine with that. So, whoever picks the bottom Bitcoin is going to make way more money on their trade than me, but I just think the probabilities of that are really, really low. So I go through still and I scan every single day. Any crypto that's up on the day, there's not very many today. Most of them are just in downtrends, right? So there's really nothing to see here. And then there were some that I know I was watching, like Mana. Yeah, and that's kind of holding on here. So Mana would be something to maybe take a shot in if and when it got over like $1 a share. But again, everything's still in a downtrend. So there's really nothing to swing about when it comes to crypto, right? So I like to summarize each individual security type before I go into the next one. And to me, anyway, when it comes with crypto, you're just kind of sitting in no man's land. You're just waiting for something to occur. It doesn't mean you can't trade it. I do have some trading that I do on Bitcoin, kind of on the 1 hour time frame, where I'm looking for a lot of anchored VWAP type plays. Right, so anchor something to here, maybe see if you can get like a pullback like this kind of thing. So it's still a good trading vehicle, and I still recommend that everyone open an account and start playing. But when it comes to real long-term moves, there's really nothing that's super interesting for me to see there. So into the actual traditional currencies, something that I trade a lot of. I do have two positions on now. One is actually short on a lower time frame, this Aussie yen. And basically what I'm starting to see here is some potential, not necessarily, but some potential kind of topping action going on, where we had, scroll out, we had this bull flag here, and I got some of this on the way up. This is great, and I've said it a few times. Aussie yen is actually on a dollar basis, I think made me more this year than anything else. And then we had this bull flag that we were watching, broke that. I got another little bit out of that. Two scenarios I see that are possible here. One is we've got another bull flag and this thing's going to continue. The other is that we're just dealing with this kind of topping pattern here and we're going to take a pullback. And if we do, this seems to be like a decent area to test. So I've noticed that we've got all these anchored VWAPs from these swing highs above, and that's resting right on top here. So I've just kind of taken a shot, I think with a stop kind of above here, just to say if on a lower time frame, because we're in a downtrend. So I zoomed into, I believe, about a 4-hour chart is usually how I trade crypto. There we go. And then let's get rid of, we can just make these, let's remove all, make them a little more precise on the lower time frame. Right, so we have a lot of this resistance overhead here, and then we have these anchored VWAPs overhead, so I'm short pretty much right in this area with, again, a stop right above these highs right here, just to see if I'm right and this thing cracks. I think we may try to take a shot at this right here. So, you know, risk reward is just insane. And whenever I see something that is this wild, I'll usually end up taking the trade, even if it's a little bit counter trendy. You know, the trend on the 4 hour is definitely down, but it may be a little bit against the longer term trend on the daily chart. Right, so we've got like a 6R. Right, so if I'm risking, I think, you know, $250 times that by 6, that would be my reward if I'm right, and we kind of get into this area here. And let's just keep going here. So Aussie, New Zealand dollar, still struggling with this prior high, just basing in this area. I don't really see anything interesting there. I'm going to actually take this. I'm actually going to take this screenshot just again, because what I do, this is something that I do privately every night, and then one night a week I do it publicly with all of you guys. The idea is simply to try to find, you know, what's going on next. So for the pro members, when I'm done here, I'll kind of wrap this up into a neat little package. Now, Aussie dollar, you know, I've had this noted for a while now. Massive rounded top here in Aussie dollar. Everything versus the dollar kind of has a look like this. So, you know, I would obviously not be interested in kind of this to the upside until we can break this kind of spot 70 area. Until then, you know, just a nice downtrend. Euro GBP, I'm really sad I missed out of this guy here on the on Friday and Saturday. I was short some in this area, and I covered some here just because it's so choppy. And you can see we let go here. So that's just playing off that resistance whenever I can. And again, anything quoted in the dollar, you can see has had this rounded top and this pretty solid downtrend. I think Aussie held up a bit, and I think Canadian dollar held up a bit, basically just because oil was holding up a bit. And that was the only reason that I could see. Right, pound dollar, same thing. New Zealand dollar, same thing. So this is another trade that I have, just anchoring a VWAP from here. You can see we broke out and then we pulled back into it. And then in the longer context of what's going on here, this zone right here has been important since December. Yeah, December 2023. So there's been this pullback that happened. You could have taken a buy off that, and now there's another kind of shallower pullback. I did take a buy off that. It's the same kind of thing where, you know, the risk reward on this is so good. I think my stop's somewhere in this area, and if we break out, it's going to be pretty easy to get 4 or 5 times my risk on a trade like this. Right, and that's all I look at. That's roughly these swing highs back over here. And that has a lot to do with oil. Right? If both of these actual trades could be seen as taking a bit of a flyer on oil. Gold, I look at in this context, gold sucks. Right? And then I always try to bring up the UUP, which is just the dollar index. And you can see my notes, US dollars to the moon. This thing put in a big rounded bottom and has just been going crazy. If you take this chart and invert it, that's a lot of the other charts that I've been showing are going to look like this, right? So it's just because they're denoted in the dollar. Now, if you look at the last, just zoom into the candle patterns here, we've got doji. We got 4 dojis in a row. So, you know, if there was a moment where we could be in for a top, it may be right here. We may break under these areas and start pushing lower, which would help my Canadian dollar position a little bit, not too much. Obviously, for that, I want this trend to continue. And then the Aussie yen wouldn't affect it. But, so if this dollar breaks, then it's going to start, being time to try to look for areas to buy that pullback. So it could be something like in this area off this low, or this area off this low. Just trying to pick my levels. If we're coming in for a pullback, who knows, right? I should actually just keep that there, keeping those trades open. I'm slightly down on both of the trades currently. So that's the dollar. So I'm actually just going to make a note here. One thing that's interesting that I'm actually gonna highlight this a bit better and shrink this guy. Just really want to highlight what I'm looking at. This so for people who study kind of candlestick psychology, kind of the way I do, it's one of those things that if a doji represents indecision, then 4 dojis would represent a bunch of indecision. So, looking at the ETF is a little bit weird just because of how it's done. Like it's a basket of other currencies, and a basket of other currencies that are open 24/7, and then this instrument's open that kind of 9 to 5. So there's a little bit of weirdness there. That's why there's a lot of gaps. But generally, the overall intraday action, I think, is generally pretty good at kind of telling what's going on here. So we have this 4 doji top. One thing I did want to point out, and this is from watching my buddy JC, he's noted that pretty much ever since the UUP broke out and started moving higher, so kind of from this area right here, that's where we started to see the downtrend in equities. So he's under the impression, and I don't think it's the craziest thing in the world, that for us to get a bit of a relief rally in equities, we would need to start seeing the dollar pull back. And that just has a lot to do with the fact that the concept that money flows, right? So you have equities, and if everyone's in equities, when they sell equities, they either are selling it and converting it into dollars, so buying dollars, or they're moving it into commodities or bonds or something like that. So, money always flows. It's very rarely, in and then completely out. So if we start to see people dumping US dollars, they may be doing that to buy equities. I think that's kind of the theory there. And it makes sense to me. So that's what I think of the Forex market. So now let's get into the equity markets. And to do that, we'll come over here to trade ideas, and I'll bring up. So that was TrendSpider. I use TrendSpider for my mobile alerting, and I use it for FX and crypto, which Tradias doesn't have access to yet. And then for my kind of intraday, or for my equity trading and my shorter term trading, I do that a lot with trade ideas. So with the list we're going through here is just a list of ETFs that I put together. I have it sorted by position in, let's do 5-day range. So position in 5-day range. So cane is just a sugar ETF. You can see a little bounce going on here in these commodities as a whole. Same thing with wheat. Sold off. People say technical analysis doesn't work, but prior breakout zone becomes support. Clean as day. So the question is this a dead cat bounce and we're just going to continue lower? Or is this just, right? Was this just nasty pullback just that, a pullback and uptrend. I'm kind of the mind that this hurt a lot of people. So as we bounce, we've probably got a lot of bag holders in this area. So there's a lot of overhead uh, supply there. A lot of people thinking that they were going to buy wheat and it was going to squeeze to the moon, I guess. So I wouldn't be, if I had a gun to my head, I would bet that might just be a dead cat bounce for commodities here. Next is solar, and solar is really interesting to me. It's starting to, you can see the downtrend that's existed for a while here, but it popped in here and then it put in a higher low, and it looks like it might be continuing higher. So then this pattern would then turn into reverse head and shoulders. So if that's going to be true, and let's draw that out, then it's possible that we can start looking at solar plays. So for anyone who is new to me and my style of trading, I don't generally trade these ETFs. That's not the reason that I'm looking at them. The main reason that I watch these ETFs is I want to know what the overall market that I'm trading looks like. So that when I'm doing my scanning, if I see a solar stock, because I would rather trade the individual equity names, because I believe that gives me more of an edge, right? The overall index, it's very rare that you'll have the SPY just like crack up 20-30% out of the blue. When it comes to intraday trading, I do a lot of FX and futures and things like this, but when it comes to my swing trading, which is kind of my bread and butter and where most of my trading occurs, when we're not in bear markets, I want to find what I think the market's doing, and then I want to find what I think the sector's doing, and then find individual names. So as we're scanning individual stocks, which is what we're going to do next, if I see a solar stock, then I go, okay, well, I have a theory that we may be bottoming in solar, and solar might be one of the next things people transition their money into, so that if I see a solar name, then that just gives more credence that is something that I should put on a watch list somewhere. So I hope that makes sense. It's basically a concept of relative strength, right? So tan. So just saying, hey, maybe there's an inverse head and shoulder going on in the overall market, in the solar market. ARC, I think everybody is watching this, so I'm not going to note it. I've already noted it in yesterday's blog post, but yes, we're getting a nice base in ARC. And yes, we're hanging out near the high of that base. Maybe we get a push. The reason I look at ARC is my proxy for junk stocks like Robinhood, Peloton, Zoom, right? We all know the names. But every time it's kind of done this basing before, it's just been a bit of another lag lower. So, as a trader, you have to guess in the direction of the underlying trend. So I wouldn't necessarily go, yeah, it's time. ARC is going to, take off to the moon. But maybe you're going to get a little bit of break of that resistance in a relief rally. So a well-timed trade in ARC might make sense. Anyone who thinks that we're just like going to shoot back up and triple to 150, I've got a bridge to sell you. But, these things are so beaten up. I always like to take a look at Hood, right? Potential higher low going on here in Robinhood, and could Robinhood squeeze up to like 20? Maybe, right? Could it squeeze up to what's this, 16? This high? Maybe. That's obviously more likely. Do I think it's coming back up here to, what was it, 70 it topped at? Like, absolutely not, right? So XME, I was watching this area right here. Obviously, it sliced right through. came back and used that as resistance, kind of the same zone that was happening in through here, and then sold off. So XME is metals and miners, everything from aluminum to gold, right? If they mine it, they do it. USO, my kind of bet on USO is the same as my bet on wheat. Is this bounce going to be real? Probably not. You know, we're in a downtrend now. Could it? Could it break this high? Certainly. I just think we're probably more likely that this bounce is going to fail than it's going to continue, because we're in again, the same reason is that this pullback was nasty in through here, right? This zone right here was nasty. This thing was looking strong and everything was going well, and then just boom. And then it bounced a little bit, right? So just two massive down legs. So if we're going to bounce, then, you know, I just think that's the less likely of the scenarios. So that kind of is a lot to do with my CAD trade as well. DBC, this is where I'm going to make the note. So DBC is a good index to take a look at, a good ETF to add to your scans, where it's just an overall commodity index. So it, you know, if I didn't want to look at oil and wheat and all these things, which I won't once they're not in play, then you can look at DBC. Bounce in. And a bounce and a downtrend until proven otherwise is kind of my thinking there. But yeah, you can use DBC as a proxy for oil and gas and all of these different things. So this real estate sector, I think this one's a bit interesting to keep an eye on as well. Just because this zone, you can see how important this kind of area has been right in through here. You can see all this low corresponded with this low and now this high. So are we just going to, you know, pull back and bounce lower on real estate? Maybe. Right, just something to keep an eye on. Silver still sucks. KWeb is still holding strong. Now, it's not bouncing with the market, which makes it, at least over the last few days, relatively weak. However, it's still, when you compare it to, say, ARC or Hood, it's still holding up pretty well. So I do have some Chinese names, but I certainly wouldn't add them. And gold sucks. I still have that a bit, not too much, of that gold short from kind of in this area. That may turn into a long-term position, because kind of the way I look at it is that if, and I've made this rant before, if we're in a bear market with the highest inflation rate, like since, you know, the 70s, what's the point of gold? Right? Like, what does it do if not for a hedge against a bear market or a hedge against inflation? Like, what does it need to exist for? So the fact that I got a really good price up in this area and I locked in a lot of my profits as we sold down here makes me think that I just want to slap a stop in this kind of area and just lock it away in an account. I just need to figure out what they're charging me for holding the short position. So the overall market, right? This is kind of a good place to end on this. We have a lot here, right here, that I'm worried about. So if we run an anchored view up from this swing low, and the reason I'm doing this more and more is I don't know if this is the way Brian Shannon does it, but it seems to work phenomenally, where these will kind of act as highs. But you can see, yeah, and then this one. So the anchored view app from this last swing low, it would probably look the same if I did it there, but we have that potential area right here. We also have, Actually, let me just take the screenshot. I'll do it right to the screenshot. Right, so we have this anchored VWAP, which are the highs right here. We also have, right, this prior resistance or prior support that now might be resistance. We are still in the context of an overall downtrend. Anyone who is a member of Stats Edge Pro and has been reading the blog post, you can say that I've just been like Captain Buzzkill. Every time we bounce, I go, calm down, guys. And every time when we were selling off in the uptrend, I was going, calm down, guys. I think it's kind of the same thing. So we have, and I think the note is simple, huge level to get through. So I want to see it not only break that, but I want to see it break that area and hold. All right, so that is, I don't know, 390 to 400. I think that's going to be a huge area for the overall market, and we have to get through that in order to start constructing and getting out of what this bear market is. And it's just, you know, on every sell-off when the market was ripping, on every sell-off, there was like a group of people that I knew and kind of respected that, it was the end of the world, right? Every time we'd have a downtick in this overall screaming uptrend, we'd have a downtick. People go, no, it's different this time, going to cash. It's the end. Everything's over. Everything's bad. And then we bounced and we moved higher. And now that we're in a downtrend, I'm seeing a lot of the same names and the same voices that every time we bounce, it's like, okay, now the bear market's over. And it's like, just step back, take a look at the chart. This is a bounce and a downtrend. Just like those were pullbacks and uptrends. This is so far a bounce and a downtrend. And you can see, if I scroll back, all of these, right, uptrend bounces. And these are the kind of things that I'm talking about, where, you would see a move like this and go, oh, no, market's going to hell. Everything's bad. Then you'd see that move, and then you'd see this move all the way up. And it's like, if you just pay attention to the trend, right, in this case, the trend is kind of looking down. Well, it's definitely down. Then you just kind of hang out and wait. Look for individual names that are showing relative strength, but before you just kind of plow back in, I want to see something that determines it's an uptrend. And again, just like I was talking about with Bitcoin, does that mean that I'll be late and that somebody's going to nail the bottom and make way more money than me? Yeah, for sure. But what's the consistency of doing that? And then what is their risk reward on doing that? Like, how much do they lose before they win? So, all right, now that is done, that's my thought on the overall markets. Now what we're going to do is we are going to go into individual names, and this is where I'm going to curate and build the watch list. And also, if you have any charts you guys want me to look at, now is the time to do it. Any questions, or if you just want to have a conversation, I'm just pretty, as a lot of you guys can tell, I'm pretty dogmatic about my routines, right? I do everything in kind of the same order every night, and just works for me, right? I don't have to think about it. It's the same as I'm big into intermittent fasting. And it's the same kind of thing, is because I just don't have to think about food other than one meal a day. Like, I'm a very routine heavy guy. So I do see the question there on APPH. So APPH was actually the Trade Ideas trade of the week right here at 360-ish. That worked out phenomenally. I had it on the list here and actually owned some myself. I was looking at it around 4. So basically breaking this high. So I have a little bit of it around there. It's for me, it's way too late, right? You're up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 days in a row. If you're buying stuff that are up 6 days and 40%, and now's the time to buy, I think you're just a little late on that. Doesn't mean it can't set up later. Right? Watch for a base or some sort of pullback or something. I sold a chunk on Friday. I fully suspect it to pull back at some point. Maybe there'll be a reload opportunity, but I can't buy anything that's up 4 days in a row like that. Personally, right? Some people love to chase like that. For me, every time I chase, I know I'm going to be the one to top tick everything. So, and to be honest, from the scanning, I kind of hacked it a bit, and I created a list that I called hammock while I was on the hammock. So first, let's go through the list as it was, and let me see if there's anything I need to remove. ACLX, I think I still want to leave here. It's only 20 cents above the interesting area, which was just this prior high. Full disclosure, I always say this. I am in this. I always want to say when I'm in something, when I'm talking about it. I've just picked some up somewhere in this area. I can't remember. 19 something. And again, the idea is this dotted line right here just notes the IPO price. So there's a scan that I built and I put into Trade Ideas that's just looks at all the IPOs that were either near their IPO price. There's a scan for that, or hitting the high of their IPO range. This one was one that was right at its IPO price. I just kind of noted that this area right here, this $19, $20 area, seems very interesting. So I pick some in here, and I've got to stop. I'll probably stop at under 17, but worst case, like 15 or below this area. Just an interesting looking chart. ALTK, I'm going to leave this one in here. Simple idea of, this thing's trying to become an uptrend, right? So this is what I call my higher low play. You see a lot of this, right? Obvious downtrend, and then it puts in what could be a lower high, and now it's just kind of basing here. So if this thing can continue higher and break this, then now it's in an uptrend. Maybe we can get, again, instead of trying to buy it when it's down here, or even trying to buy it when it's down here, if I can get it when it's right here, and then I can get it right there, that's just more of a probabilistic trade setup for me. AYPX, I think I'm going to take this off the list. Full disclosure, I'm in this one, but I'm in from, it's a real slow mover. I'm in from 336. So I need to see what kind of happens at this high, which would be about 750. I would definitely take quite a bit off there if we got there. Great little trade so far on that one. CEG, I'm going to leave this one on the list as well. We can see the anchored VWAP. We closed above it on Friday. This is another one of those ETF or IPOs that I got from the IPO scan. A hugely important area at about 54.5. You can see highs and lows in that area. Looks like we may be bouncing off that zone. If we can, then that's great. We can maybe take a shot at highs here, which is like 66. If we break this, this has got to be your worst case kind of line in the sand right here, but I'll leave that one in place. And then I also always have this. I try to always have this for Trend Spider, just showing that's the overall trend. That's what this line is on the bottom. It's just a line chart of the S&P 500 that's lined up with this. And you can see this is just making lower low after lower low after lower low. And this is just making equal low after equal low. So some relative strength there for sure. LU, I'm going to scrap this one off the list. If it gets back up, I still kind of like the look of this rounded bottom, but it's got to get back up into the sixes before it's worthwhile. MNRO, I'm watching this one as well. We have a potential bear trap, and for those who don't know, a bear trap is just when a instrument breaks a pretty established support zone and then quickly retakes it, and then it actually broke it again, and then it quickly retakes it. But this also draws out my higher low play, where potentially this is going to put in a higher low, and if we can kind of break up in this area, then we have a higher high, and that might be a reversal of this downtrend. Right? Just my way to kind of get stocks in downtrends without really doing without having to try to bottom fish, right? Gonna leave this restaurant. This is again gonna be a slow mover, but just a little pullback, right? Potential cup and handle, you could call it, in this downtrend. VIPS, I'm gonna leave this one on the list, is another China name. Just again, rounded bottom, kind of looks like China if it can get above $11. Maybe that bottom will be finished and it can start an uptrend. Who knows? And then XPEV, I'm in a little bit of this. Just again, China, just trying to keep a couple names in there just because of the relative strength of KWeb. But it's same kind of game plan here. Plus, I think XPEV is something to do with solar, and the solar ETF looked nice, but basically just little bull flag. So a little potential cup and handle on this one. See if it pushes up. Who knows? There we go. So that's the list. Things that I'm going to add to the list. So I just like indiscriminately just dumped all these into a list when I did my. I was just outside and I was on my iPad and I was bored. So I just made a list of these. So I'm actually going to take this list and I'm going to import it into Trade Ideas here. So that, because Trade Ideas has this window right here, which I think is a incredibly underrated window, which will show me just all of the, like, what is the company, what does it do, right? What's the average volume, a bunch of metrics that I find really, really useful. And let's just throw it in. They're not memes, but I'll throw it in the meme thing. I'll go, okay. You might be suffering with this. I think it needs them in a vertical list. And these came from some new scans that I'm playing with within TrendSpider, which will be brought into the Market Explorer and Trade Ideas fairly soon. There we go. So all I have to do is point this window here from ETF and point it towards memes. And then we can do our scanning through this, and then we'll go through the other Trade Ideas scan. So this Rovi, basically just a big rounded bottom I'm looking at here. It's got a massive, massive resistance zone at about 486. Average daily volumes over 1 million. Earnings not for a while, or actually just happened. So it's a bio. So you got to be careful with bios, but I am going to put this on the list, but because again, this is my list. Stats Edge is not a signal service. I don't believe in those. I kind of believe that people who desperately are looking for them are going to have a bad time. So I'm going to basically say 5 and 4. IV. So I'm just updating the list there. If there's any pro members, the list gets updated in real time, and then I go through and import all the other stuff. PTSL, I think I'm going to leave this one for now. One thing I kind of liked about it, I'm trying to build a scan in which you anchor the VWAP from the prior swing high, and when it starts to act as support, then that looks interesting to me. Basically just break it down means that the average participant from this swing high is now sitting under price right here. So means that basically these bag holders are wiped out. Ideally, I want to see this in an uptrend as opposed to a downtrend. Don't know why that was on the list. V-cell, I think this was the same kind of a anchor it from the last swing high. Yeah, and it starts acting as support here. So this might be something for more of a short-term trade. For those who are members, you'll know I talk about my double inside day, that you're kind of getting that right here with V-cell. So this is something I think I put on the list for more of a day trade tomorrow, because we have this big push up. We're over the anchored VWAP there, and then we've got this double inside day. Everything's getting like super nice and tight. If we can break this zone right here, which is what, 28 bucks maybe, right? You can take a flyer on that for a day trade. ALLO, this is one I wanted to check. Super low float, but actually really good average daily volume on Allo. And this is more like I was talking about, that I want to see this pattern. I've been just observing this. I need to find a way to test it, but it is something that's very, very interesting to me. Where again, you have the last swing high, you anchor a VWAP from there. When it starts to act as support, you can kind of say, okay, right? It's to the point in which this thing looks like it may continue higher. So I'm going to add this one. So what would it be like? 1250, 1050? I don't know. There we go. Where that came from. So I take the screenshot of everything on the watch list each night. So I try to kind of draw out why I may think that it's a good play. Because again, the whole concept of this is learning, right? So you can see big strong push up, and now we're chopping sideways. So if this can continue, maybe we get a push from that. So that's ALLO, and that's 12 spot 5, and that's 10 spot 5. Cert, same kind of play. Big round at bottom, bull flag going on here. I don't think this moves enough. Merc, this is kind of a pure play, how I want to see. Again, I need to do more testing with this, but again, you get the anchored VWAP from the last high. It's kind of acting as support. You've got these 3 dojis right here in a row. Again, dojis represent indecision. I know I stopped talking about this a lot because I thought I was repeating myself, but I get a lot of questions on candlestick analysis. So I'll start again for new people. It's basically just, yeah, so this is from this swing high, we're acting as support. We've got from this swing high below, so we're really at highs. Then we've got this 3 doji pullback. So if we can break kind of the high of one of these dojis around 94, maybe this indecision resolves itself and that resolution is higher. It's kind of what I'm thinking on Merc. And just really, really strong, right? This is the market. You can see we've had this pretty dramatic pullback in the market. And then if you anchor Merc from the same time, just complete divergence. So crazy relative strength when it comes to that. So 94 and then 92. And again, I'll say, guys, if you have any questions, anything you want me to look at or anything, now's the time to do it, as we're just scanning away and making our watch list. 94, 92. this is generally speaking, I've got some day trading strategies that I run, but this is generally speaking most of my trading where I'm very much I want to plan everything well in advance. I want to know what's going on in the market. I want to know what my watch list is. I want all this sorted before the market opens. I want because I don't want to have to think of all of the different. I just want to have to focus on what it is that I'm going to do that day. So, Chef's Warehouse here, low float, okay volume, good enough. Contending with, but slightly above these highs back here. So this chart on the bottom is a weekly chart. You can see it's above these highs. It's kind of in line or slightly above this high. And now it's putting in this bull flag right here. So I kind of like this if we can close above 40. And then your stop is 38. Right, very simple idea. We're above this high here. So if this can get going, right, we just have your really, really typical bull flag looking pattern here. Right, really, really, really typical. 40, 38. Was that it? Was that it for no? Two more. Band. Yeah, I've got enough stuff in downtrends. Oh, and STRA. This one was very interesting to me, where we had this prior high right here that was acting as support for STRA. And then we also have this prior resistance that might be acting as support on this pullback. So if we can get a nice bounce here, I think you can get a pretty solid risk and reward. So this one will go on here as well. STRA, and we'll just anchor the VWAP from here. So you can see there's a lot of support in this area. I love to play support like this if and when I can. So what are we talking? Like 68, 65? And that was it for the list. So let's go through some scans here, one of which I always like to do is this IPO scan. So basically this is just looking for stocks that are IPOs, and it determines IPOs as stocks that do not have a 400 period moving average. So they've existed for less than 400 days. And it's just sorting them by what's in the highest end of that particular range. The idea being that if you can get a nice pattern on an IPO that's going to be breaking into all-time highs, then it makes a little bit more sense than trying to pick the stocks that have so many bag holders. Peloton, Zoom, and all of these stocks that people are trying to pick and say which one is going to be the next one, right? Which one is going to be the one that survives and maybe makes its way back to all-time highs. The way I look at it is a little bit easier to say, okay, which IPO, which new company that doesn't have a whole bunch of bag holders. You can see this is where I found CEG. For the company that doesn't have a whole bunch of bag holders in it, if that's going to break out to new highs as a new IPO, well, maybe that's the move, because you don't have that baggage, that overhead baggage that you're dealing with. So ideally, what I'm looking for here is some sort of, I guess, maybe something like this, where you've got, see, that's a little bit close, but you got these highs, but you're basing here. So maybe a break of this high will get you a break of that high and kind of rock you up. What do they do with dental? End-to-end technology management for services solution in the United States healthcare industry. Medical equipment manages services. Company was founded in 1939. Wow. Right, so the idea here, so I'm just actually I'm not gonna put it on the list, but I'm gonna set a price alert here in trade ideas. Is that if we can get over kind of 22 and a half, then right, maybe that gets us through 23 in a bit, and then 24, and then all of a sudden we've got this massive base on this stock that's moving higher. Dawn, I guess, would have been on this as well. Kind of basing here, getting a little bit interesting. This kind of gap and go was a bit crazy from $5 to 20, but now it's basing here, so maybe continuation there for incredibly short-term traders. Yeah, I guess here's kind of a perfect of what I'd be looking for. Right, this IMCR, you can see this pretty defined level here, and then some nice sideways action. So this would have been the move right here to buy this guy as it goes. Try to see if you can hold on, because as long as you're above 40, I think you're probably good on this one. And it's again, because it's an IPO, it doesn't have the baggage. It doesn't have the baggage of being a stock that went to $600 and is now trading at like 100, or in Peloton's case, the baggage of going into 200 and now being traded below 10. No baggage, no bag holders. So that's about that one. So the other one that I look at here is, this is just stocks that are within one ATR of their closing price or of their IPO price. So AMLX, for example, if this one chops for a few more days, this is kind of interesting. Big rounded bottom in here. And right, the IPO is right here. It's always going to be on the far right of the screen there. Oh yeah, this one's interesting for you Bitcoin guys out there. The BITI, inverse crypto ETF. It's an interesting look. Bowl is bowling. I still have some MICS, I think. I don't know if I was stopped out Friday. Yeah, no, I'm still in this from about $6. Took some off before earnings just so I felt comfortable there, and it's just been chopping sideways. Long karaoke, I guess. So yeah, just trying to see if there's something that's like setting up a base, or making an interesting look inside of the context of being a new issue, and again, something without baggage. Sorry, I keep looking over there, but I've got my FX platform on the screen here. I was down about $200 across both the positions. Now I'm down less than $100 across both the positions. So things are moving around. I'm just with these, I'm basically a set it and forget it kind of trader. I put out my stop loss. I put a alert at where I think I would start to be interested in taking profits, and then I look every few hours. I don't need to see every tick of it, but just look over every now and then if I'm at my main machine with the screen real estate, or just let the alerts guide me. That's one thing I love. I can use TrendSpider to create alerts at where I would be interested to take profits. So nothing really I see from that guy. We've got some interesting ones here for anyone who is the strat trader. They still have we're working through maybe some bugs. They may already be fixed. We'll find out. But first, we have this double inside day. That one's really a nice, interesting one for me when it comes to looking for things with potential like tomorrow. The idea just being that um, so Thursday's candle is within Wednesday's candle, and Friday's candle is within Thursday's candle. So you've got Wednesday's candle, and then you've got Thursday's candle inside that, and then you've got Friday's candle, I guess even smaller, like inside that. So you get this really sharp tightening formation. What I like about it is that when things start to coil that tight, at some point in the near future, there's going to be a move one way or the other. So I kind of take a look at this and I say, okay, well, each of these have the ability to go. I just want to make sure that I use traditional technical analysis and say, okay, which ones do I think are in uptrends or are at resistance zones that if and when, oh, this is where I found this V cell at. So V cell, for example, is right at this resistance area right here. And if it can break that, it's got room to, 31 and a half. So if, we open up kind of inside yesterday's range and we start to trade higher, V cell would be one that I'd be interested to buy from like a really, really short-term time frame. See if it could get up to maybe 30 and cut it and move on. But sometimes, quite often, the reason I like to scan through this list, there's only 40 symbols, it says in it. But sometimes you get this pattern and you get it in relation to when you look at the larger picture, you say, oh, this looks really good. Right, so you have the double inside day, and then at the same time you go, oh, this is, a bull flag, or it's happening at an area that I think is interesting, or a pullback zone I think is interesting. So you're using it as a trigger point, and then you're just using your analysis, which is there's two ways to scan, right? One is to try to scan everything, the entire picture that you're after. The other way is to scan just the trigger condition. Like, what is it that I usually like to see just to get into the trade over the last few days, and then just let my eyes do the rest. I would say, scanning for the whole thing is going to save you the most amount of time. Scanning for just the trigger condition is going to take way more time to go through the charts, but you're going to get, more screen time, more chart time, and you're going to, when you're trying to build a scan to encompass everything, that can become kind of cumbersome to try to figure that out. Whereas if you're scanning for the trigger condition, you're able to go, okay, let me just look at that, and now I'm letting everything else in, which just gives it a really high probability that you'll find what it is you're looking for, and in return you're sacrificing time. So this is another one that I've started to use, even though I'm not what they would call a stratter. I like the concept of this one, which is simply it's looking for a down day yesterday and then an inside day. So that basically down on Thursday, inside on Friday. And then I've sorted this in the position of kind of the overall. So this is 20-day range, or you can sort it in year range. The idea being that, if you can find something that's like this, it's in an uptrend, and then it pulls back, you're basically getting a pullback and then a rest day. And the idea is that if it breaks the high of that rest day, you could potentially get a continuation of this shorter term uptrend without having to explain the strat and stuff like that. I think that's a pretty decent little wrap up for it. And this is the very first of the what we are building with the Strat and the Strat community. We're planning on doing a lot of stuff for the Strat community. They seem like pretty hardcore kind of guys, so that we like them at Trade Ideas. This is the same kind of idea, except it's looking for an outside day on Thursday, followed by an inside day on Friday. And then again, I have it sorted here by, let's do it this way, by position and 20-day range. So it's going to find all of the 20-day ranges on top. All right, and last but not least, I always like to look at my bull flag. So this is just that. You're very, now we're back into more traditional technical analysis where this is just looking for bull flags. So something that has some sort of up move recently and now is getting really, really tight today. I use Bollinger Bands to describe something getting tight, and then just the position of moving averages to describe something in an uptrend. Just so you guys have a little bit in the know on how it works, right? And then we'll do position 120-day range, and let's just look for stuff. UTHR looks phenomenal. Full disclosure, I'm in UTHR from down here. We had a nice little trade in it. I got out most. I'm still holding a little bit on that one. CI looks great. A little too extended here. WAT is on the scanner. It's got above this resistance, which is good, but I had to go like 6 days in a row to get there. So again, the idea is just looking for bull flags. Really, really simply. If you're a new trader, it's really what I would suggest. Bull flags and bear flags, now there's going to be a million ways to define them, whether it's through something like I did where I'm looking for tighter Bollinger Bands, or whether it's something that EDU, I still have some as well, whether it's using anchored VWAPs, whether it's using inside days or weeks, however you define it, it's kind of the simplest way to go. Because it's just stock is in an uptrend and it's resting, right? And it just means the beauty of it is that it's in an uptrend already, and that it's resting, so you have an area in which to play off of, right? You're just not buying something because it's gone up, right? That's the biggest problem I see with a lot of traders. It's a very FOMO type thing. For example, there's somebody who, as Leota was rocketing up here, was buying kind of up in this area. Now that it's kind of chilled out sideways, I think I'm going to actually add this one to the list. Right, very simple. Uptrend and base sideways. So I just want to, I'm not upset that I didn't get it from 20 to 40, right? I'm not upset about that. If I can get it from 40 to 45 or 50, I'm happy, right? 10%, if I can get a 10% return in a couple days and then turn that into the next one and so on and so forth, that's more or less how I do it. So what we're talking, 40, like 36. I have a cutoff for the amount of stocks that I'll watch at once, and it's 15. Fairly arbitrary number, but just I do all of my swing trading in the last hour of the day. I kind of ignore the swing trading side of the market until then. So what I do, I want to make sure that in that last hour of the day, I've got all the time that I need to do the analysis that I need and all of these things. Um, so I just have, I find if I'm going to add 50 things to the list, it's just very cumbersome to do every night. And we're actually at 13, which is the biggest the list has been for a very, very long time. End phase looks really nice here, holding up. Talk space, whatever. Could be reversing. Jeez. They have to write their company name in all caps like that to be annoying. Engineering systems. I don't know. This one's holding up, whatever this is. It's holding up pretty nice. And it's putting in a nice kind of bull flag up against this 95 area. So I like this one if it can get above 95. So I think this might take our last spot here. SAIC. Again, I like always pay attention to down here when we're on Trend Spider. I like that, right? This is always lined up, right? These are always kind of the same time frame, and you can see what the SPY's been doing, and then at this over the same time frame, you can see what the price is doing. So anytime I talk about relative strength, this is what I mean. What is the market doing versus what is the individual name doing? So there's obviously some relative strength here. It's got a lot of resistance here at 95. If it can get through that, next area is 105, and then maybe off to the races. So I kind of just like the look of just a very typical resistance play. So that's SAIC, and we're just going to go 95 and 90. I have one more slot. Let me see if I can go through for one more slot. We already put Chef on there. I just see it's in there now. Yeah, that's already on there. This plus I always watch the TI Strength Alerts plays, which should have been emailed out to everybody. So my Canadian dollar positions kind of lifting off here, and my Aussie dollar position is Aussie yen. It's just it's about even. It's about where it was when we started. Just for those who like the updates of what's going on in my Forex account. ALLO, we already added that to the list. That one looks good as well. I think we're going to be done. I think we're going to be done here. Okay, guys. I didn't see any other tickers come through. That's fine. But I appreciate everyone hanging out. For the pro members, just FYI, I'm going to just compile all this into the list and I will upload it on the website. I'll ping everyone in Discord when that's done. I don't know, half hour max. As for everyone else, thank you all for coming out again. I've got some plans now that, new dad life is settling down to start putting more and more out on the channel. So stay tuned for that. If you can leave a like on the way out, that'd be greatly appreciated. Trade safe out there, and I will see you guys next week.